In our headlines on this Wednesday, November 12th, here in South Korea. Come Thursday, over 500,000 test takers nationwide sit down for an annual scholastic ability test that determines their future academic path. Meanwhile, South Korea adds over 190,000 jobs in October, maintaining its momentum, but employment remains uneven depending on age and industry. Over in the US, House lawmakers are reportedly scrambling back to Washington, D.C. for a vote as early as Wednesday on reopening the government. We are now counting down just one day to the annual college entrance test here in the country, with over 500,000 test takers poised to sit down for the grueling 8-hour marathon examination. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
With the annual National College Entrance Exam, or Suneung, just one day away, test takers receive their official exam slips. These slips confirm the subjects the student has selected and the specific test center where they will be taking the exam. Examinees are also being instructed on final test-taking procedures. High school seniors are receiving their slips at their respective schools. Graduates retaking the exam are collecting theirs from designated locations such as district education support offices or specific test centers. Now that they have their test site locations, examinees are advised to visit their assigned centers to ensure they are familiar with the route for Thursday. According to the Ministry of Education, a total of 554,174 people have applied for this year's exam. This is an increase of over 31,500 or 6.0% from last year and marks the highest number of applicants in 7 years. This year's competition for university admission is expected to be particularly fierce. This is largely due to the Golden Pick cohort, students born in 2007 during a baby boom that year, who are now high school seniors. Graduates account for 28.9%. Their numbers decreased slightly by 1.2% compared to last year's 21-year high, but it's still high compared to other years. That 2025 spike was largely attributed to a temporary, significant increase in medical school admissions quotas. For the 2026 admissions, those quotas have reverted to their original 3,123 openings, possibly stopping some retakers aiming for a medical school place. The rules on prohibited items are strict. All electronic devices, including mobile phones, smartwatches, tablets, Bluetooth earphones, and e-cigarettes, are banned from the test site. The exam will be held at 1,310 test centers across the country, beginning at 8:40 a.m., with measures in place to cut down noise during the exams and workers adjusting commute times to ensure smooth roads are clear for test takers. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And the labor market appears to be maintaining its momentum, with findings for October showing over 190,000 new jobs. But as has been the case in recent times, the trend remains uneven depending on age and industry. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young has details.
South Korea saw a continued upward trend in employment last month, but employment losses persisted in manufacturing and construction, as well as among the younger population. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday, the number of employed people stood at over 29 million in October, adding more than 190,000 jobs.
While the upward trend in employment continued, the pace of increase narrowed as job losses persisted in sectors such as agriculture, forestry and fishing, construction, and manufacturing. Meanwhile, the number of unemployed people decreased, and the economically inactive population increased.
Employment data in the manufacturing and construction sectors remained sluggish. The manufacturing sector shed more than 50,000 jobs in October from a year earlier, extending its downturn to a 16th consecutive month. The construction industry also continued to struggle, losing more than 120,000 jobs to continue its decline for the 18th straight month. On the other hand, the number of employed individuals increased in sectors such as wholesale and retail, arts, sports and leisure, accommodation, and restaurants. Officials attributed this increase to government initiatives, including the Livelihood Recovery Consumption Coupons. By age, older adults primarily led the overall job growth, and while employment also rose for those in their 30s, job numbers declined for all other age groups. Notably, young people aged 15 to 29 experienced the steepest drop, with their employment rate recording its 18th consecutive monthly decline. In contrast, the rising number of economically inactive individuals taking time off to rest was especially pronounced among those in their 30s, reaching its highest level since data collection began. A government official explained that despite their generally strong employment and economic activity rates, fewer people in their 30s were inactive due to childcare or housework, with more now simply choosing to rest. 문지영, Arirang News.
The $1 exchange rate surpassed 1,470 Korean won at one point during trade on this Wednesday. Now, this is the highest level since April this year, when the rate reached 1,487 won against the greenback. The latest dollar rally comes in light of expectations that consumer spending will rise once the longest U.S. federal government shutdown comes to an end, as U.S. House lawmakers prepare to vote on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. In other news, the Lee Jae-myung administration is maintaining South Korea's support for an annual UN resolution that raises concerns over North Korea's human rights situation. Our Kim Bo-kyung explains.
South Korea is backing the UN General Assembly's resolution condemning North Korea's human rights violations as one of the 41 UN member states. This, according to the resolution document released on Wednesday. South Korea continued to co-sponsor the resolution from 2008 to 2018, but under the Moon Jae-in administration between 2019 and 2022, it withdrew, citing concerns about the impact on inter-Korean relations. Seoul rejoined in 2023 under the previous Yoon Suk-yeol administration. There has been speculation that the Lee Jae-myung government pushing for dialogue with Pyongyang would withdraw. But with Seoul's renewed backing of the resolution, this shows the Lee government is approaching the North Korea human rights issues as a matter of universal values and principles. In fact, one official from the foreign ministry reportedly said the Lee government believes it to be important to bring about real improvements in the human rights of North Korean residents, and thus joined the latest resolution as a co-sponsoring country in cooperation with the international community. The U.S., meanwhile, is not among the sponsoring countries as it withdrew from the UN Human Rights Council in February under President Trump. The latest resolution expressed deep concern about the grave human rights violations in the regime, the pervasive culture of impunity, and the lack of accountability for human rights violations and abuses. It also condemned the reclusive state for using resources on military spending and on illegal nuclear weapons and ballistic missile program rather than securing welfare. The resolution will be introduced at the UN's Third Committee before being brought to the General Assembly plenary next month for final adoption. North Korea has strongly opposed the UN's resolutions on its human rights situation, with Pyongyang's foreign ministry spokesperson last year calling it a grave political provocation that violates the regime's sovereignty. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And North Korea won the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup for the second year in a row this past weekend, and for the first time celebrations took place out on the streets. Following their 3-0 victory over the Netherlands, a recording of the game was broadcast in North Korea the following day, that was Monday evening. On Tuesday, North Korea's state media showed scenes of people cheering outdoors, including crowds gathered in front of a large electronic screen at Pyongyang Station. Now, this is the first time images of public street celebrations have been broadcast. As South Korea sets its sights on building a future fleet of nuclear-powered submarines, a former naval commander turned strategist is calling for greater maritime presence to ensure regional and global security. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young sat down with him.
South Korea's push to acquire nuclear-powered submarines marks a strategic step aligned with the rules-based international order amid growing regional tensions. President Lee Jae-myung last month asked President Donald Trump for cooperation in developing nuclear-propelled submarines with the use of US-enriched uranium fuel. Trump approved the request within 24 hours, a significant move, according to Dr. Yoo Ji-eun, a former ROK Navy officer who has been deeply involved in the Navy's aircraft carrier and submarine programs. He's now at the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses.
It shows that Washington fully acknowledges South Korea's strategic importance as a maritime power and a trusted ally in the Indo-Pacific. U.S. support suggests more than political endorsement. It could mean a closer cooperation in technology, industrial development, and operational planning.
Seoul has stressed that its pursuit of nuclear-powered submarines is not intended to fuel a broader arms race, underscoring that the project's purpose is defensive. North Korea earlier this year unveiled nuclear-powered submarines for the first time, raising alarm within and beyond the region.
North Korea already possesses submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and both China and Russia have been expanding their naval operations around the Korean peninsula. Conventional diesel-electric submarines are limited in endurance and range, but nuclear-powered submarines can remain submerged for months, giving South Korea a credible second strike capability and persistent surveillance presence.
Beyond Seoul's own security, Yoo says South Korea's sea power can fill a critical capability gap in regional security.
The United States likely supports this initiative because it strengthens collective deterrence and burden sharing within the alliance. A capable South Korean undersea fleet would enhance regional stability and complement U.S. and allied naval forces across the Indo-Pacific. Their ability to conduct long-endurance patrols would improve early warning, crisis monitoring, and intelligence collection on potential threats. In addition, these submarines would strengthen cooperation among like-minded allies, the US, Japan, Australia, and European partners, supporting a more integrated, rules-based maritime order.
But this will take time and strenuous effort, requiring congressional and regulatory approval. For now, Washington has expressed optimism about South Korea using its own shipyards. Experts expect around 8 to 10 years for a nuke-powered submarine to be operational, launched in the early to mid-2030s, in line with South Korea's Navy Vision 2045 and the nation's broader goal of achieving a blue water navy capable of global missions. Suneung, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., House lawmakers are frantically heading back to Washington, D.C. for a crucial vote Wednesday to reopen the government following its longest shutdown in history. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The U.S. Senate has approved a bipartisan compromise to end the longest government shutdown in American history. The measure passed Monday night by a vote of 60 to 40, breaking a weeks-long political stalemate that left hundreds of thousands of federal workers without pay, disrupted food aid programs for millions, and caused widespread air traffic delays. The bill drew support from nearly all Senate Republicans and 8 Democrats. Those Democrats have pushed unsuccessfully to link government funding to health insurance subsidies set to expire at the end of the year. While the agreement allows lawmakers to revisit the issue in December, it does not guarantee those subsidies will continue for the 24 million Americans who rely on them. Under the deal, funding for federal agencies that had been cut off since October 1st will be restored. It also temporarily halts President Donald Trump's effort to downsize the federal workforce, blocking any layoffs until January 30th. The bill now moves to the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. Speaker Mike Johnson said he aims to pass it as early as Wednesday and send it to President Trump for his signature.
At the very moment that they do that final vote, I will call all House members to return to Washington as quickly as possible. We'll give a 36-hour formal and official notice so that we can vote as soon as possible to pass the amended CR bill and get it to the president's desk.
Meanwhile, President Trump marked Veterans Day on Tuesday at Arlington National Cemetery, where he praised the Senate's action and saluted Speaker Johnson for what he called a big victory, saying the government is now on the verge of reopening after the record-long shutdown.
And congratulations to you and to John and to everybody on a very big victory. We're opening up our country. Should have never been closed. Should have never been closed.
If approved by the House, the bill would then go to Trump's desk to be signed, at which point government agencies would reopen starting at the time Trump signs the legislation. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And back here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung has pledged to expand financial autonomy for local governments as part of efforts to promote regional development and balanced growth. At a meeting with the heads of local governments at the Yongsan presidential office earlier on this Wednesday, he announced a tripling of the local autonomous fiscal budget to over 10 trillion won next year. He also called for equal partnership between the central and local governments and vowed to speed up the relocation of public institutions to regions outside the greater Seoul area. Meanwhile, the Presidential Commission on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth will take part in this year's United Nations Climate Change Conference in Brazil starting Thursday. During the three-day trip, Vice Secretary General Kim Jong-ryul will share South Korea's renewable energy and carbon neutrality policies at seminars hosted at the Korea Pavilion. Kim will also meet with the heads of climate committees from the UK, Canada, Australia and South Africa to discuss a deeper cooperation in tackling climate challenges. The COP30, which began on Monday, will run until November 21st. Starting tomorrow, that is Thursday, until the end of this week, the southern port city of Busan will welcome game makers and game lovers to Expo for an annual exhibition that shares the latest in the industry. Our Pyun Ye-young files this report.
From Thursday, Busan transforms into a global hub for the gaming industry. G-Star 2025 kicks off for a 4-day run under the slogan, Expand Your Horizons, bringing together the world's top developers and publishers. South Korea's leading studios, including NCSoft, Netmarble, and Gravity, will headline the main exhibition hall. Main sponsor NCSoft will take center stage with its upcoming title, Ion 2, and other new global releases, while Netmarble presents fresh games like Solo Leveling Karma and Soul Enchant. The second exhibition hall will feature a global zone with major international players such as Bandai Namco Entertainment and Blizzard. Valve, the developer of Steam Deck, is also returning for this year's Indie Showcase 2.0 Galaxy. Beyond the exhibition floor, the G-Con International Game Conference will explore storytelling and narrative across games, films, and comics, featuring industry icons such as Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horii, Nier Automata director Yoko Taro, and film director Pyun Sung-yeon. According to Busan city officials, this year's G-Star will move beyond a festival format to become a global business platform that supports local developers' international reach and strengthens Korea's gaming ecosystem. Traffic around Expo will be partially restricted during the event for safety and crowd control. G-Star 2025 runs through Sunday, showcasing the future of gaming from Busan to the world. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. A suicide bomber killed at least 12 people in Pakistan's capital on Tuesday, sharply raising regional tensions. The blast occurred outside a court complex in Islamabad around midday, wounding 27 others. Officials say the bomber tried to enter the building before detonating the device near a police vehicle. No group has claimed responsibility, but Islamabad says militants based in Afghanistan orchestrated the assault with support from India, charges that both countries deny. Pakistan's defense minister said the country is now in a state of war and vowed to respond if cross-border attacks continue. A Turkish military cargo plane carrying at least 20 people has crashed near the Azerbaijan-Georgia border. The C-130 aircraft was flying from Azerbaijan to Turkey on Tuesday night when it disappeared from radar and went down near the Georgian town of Sinhagi. Search and rescue teams are at the site, but officials have not confirmed casualties. Turkey's president has offered condolences to the families of those on board, calling them martyrs. Georgia's aviation authority says the plane issued no distress signal before impact. A Chinese woman has been sentenced to more than 11 years in prison in London for laundering billions of dollars in Bitcoin linked to a massive fraud scheme. 47-year-old Tian Dimin pleaded guilty on Tuesday of using stolen funds from more than 100,000 Chinese investors to buy cryptocurrency, now worth about $6.7 billion. She fled to the UK in 2017 and lived in a mansion in North London, where police later made one of the world's largest crypto seizures. Football star Lionel Messi has spoken about his emotional return to Barcelona and his uncertain World Cup future. While training with the Argentina national team in Spain, Messi visited an empty Camp Nou, saying he misses the club, quote, with all his heart and hopes to live there again one day. Messi added he hasn't decided on playing at the 2026 World Cup, admitting, quote, I don't want to be a burden. I'll only go if I can help the team. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
This morning, a day before the National College entrance exam, some inland areas and mountainous areas had cold below 0 degrees. Daegwallyeong started cold at minus 5.7 degrees Celsius and Ponga County at minus 3.5 degrees. The cold mornings will continue tomorrow as well. For Suneung Day tomorrow, mild conditions far above the average for the time of year will be seen, with the daytime high rising to 17 degrees in Seoul. However, as it will be chilly in the morning and evening, test takers should wear warm clothes to control their body temperatures. Seoul will start off at 8 degrees tomorrow, Gwangju and Daegu at 6 degrees. Daily highs will rise up to 18 degrees in Daejeon, Gwangju and Gyeongju, 20 degrees in Busan. Next week, the temperatures will drop sharply and the cold will come again. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, and today we cover a mayoral race in an American city that has been making global headlines.